Welcome to this Way to Fire YouTube video. Today it's me, Andy, and I will be looking through Death and Taxes, the Barons War campaign supplement from Andy Hobday and Paul Hicks as part of their Barons War 3 Kickstarter, which has recently delivered. The Kickstarter funded at the beginning of 2021 and has just arrived, well, about a month ago now. And it's my first chance to sit down and look for it properly. So this is the Barons War rulebook. You can get this from Footsore, who produce the miniatures now that their Kickstarter has finished, and they will be doing the Death and Taxes ones, I'm sure, as well. And so this builds on the same sort of theme as one of my previous videos, looking at the Barons Wars of the early 13th century, King John, all that sort of stuff. So you can see it's the same format, similar size actually, just a fraction smaller. But this is not the rules. You will need the Barons War book to play. Okay. So let's have a look inside. So we've got a lovely piece of art on the front as well. This is another Peter Dennis one. He's a fantastic artist. I've been following his stuff for probably about 30 years, from when he was doing Usborne books and stuff like that, which are kids' books, if you don't know. And his style hasn't really changed, but they're so evocative, his art. I think it's absolutely fantastic. A little bit more art going around to the back. This guy seems to have an unfortunate day. We've got some locals and perhaps outlaws defending against the Lord, maybe? Defending the village against the Lord. Okay, so let's have a little look inside. First off, it's softbound, 112 pages, all full colour. Yeah, really quite nice production. Very similar to the Barons Wars one. I've bent the cover here, don't worry about that, that's my fault. And so yeah, it's nicely glued, not too bad, doesn't seem to be wanting to come apart or anything through my initial look through. I think they tend to go over time, of course, these ones, but you know, not too bad. And I don't know what price it will be for retail, but probably not that much. I think the rulebook was about £20, maybe a bit less actually. And there's often a deal with some miniatures or tokens as well, so there'll probably be something similar with this. So let's have a look inside. So Andy Hobday and George Asling, who has done most of the other scenario writing, I think, for the Barons War stuff, they've written this together. And you can see it's broken down into 3 parts. So we've got the Death and Taxes campaign. So this is a linked campaign for 2 players based around the pseudo-mythical village of Wimuntun, which I think was a real place in Nottinghamshire, but has died away at some point in the 15th century, I think, according to what Andy's written. And then we've got the Outlaw Retinue list. So this is a new list for the Barons Wars game. So in the other book you have, in the rule book, you have all sorts of different lists for sergeants, lords, knights, all that sort of stuff. Whereas here we have outlaws as well. So this is your Robin Hood or any other sort of famous named character, or just make your own up. And then we've got the Barons Wars campaign rules. So these are more generic campaign rules, so not tied in a narrative like this one. This is for you to make your own narrative, and we'll come to that. I think that's probably one of the most interesting bits, actually, of the whole book. So we'll have a little look through. You can see the beautiful miniatures, fantastically painted as well. Really characterful. These Paul Hicks has added a huge amount of character into these. So this one, brilliant. This one as well. Oh, I love them. I won't go through the actual miniatures because mine are unpainted at the minute and they don't show up that brilliantly on film. So we'll just stick to the ones in the book. And you can see this is the village layout. Now you can use whatever buildings you want. There were some STL files available, and they did some printed ones which you could purchase as part of the Kickstarter, which I have done, so I'll look at those at the end of looking through the book. A leper as well. You're not going to use him in game necessarily. But I think he does have a role in one of the scenarios, but he's a lovely little piece to put on the table somewhere to bring some life to your village. And then it just tells you about some special rules to do with the types of buildings that are being used. This is sort of a terrain section. One of the outlaws there. Some of the other special characters as part of the narrative for this linked campaign. So the Sheriff of Nottingham. We've got the Under-Sheriff, there's a Knight, Archbishop of York. So these got the same stat profiles. If you want to know more about those, go to my video on the Barons Wars rulebook. The Priest of Wimuntun, the Blacksmith of Wimuntun, and then a few extra types. So we've got Robin Hood himself and his merry men here who have made, or merry men and women, who have made Marion, Little John and Will Scarlet. These are also some of my favourite models from the whole thing. These are the Templars. These are friends of the priest of Wimuntun who've come to visit. That just happened to come at the right time according to the narrative. And they're fantastic models. And there's a bit of a rumour that maybe the next project might be taking them into the east, to the Crusade sort of period. I hope that's true, because if you've watched, listened to our podcast interview with Andy and Paul, you'll know that we have a similar formative upbringing with Cry Havoc and Outremer, the board games from Standard Games back in the day. So you can see the linked stories here. We've got the Dawn Raid, Spring the Trap. There's different points values, 500 points, 750 points. So these are smaller games. Bullying the Bishop. There is no way Bullying the Bishop was called Bullying the Bishop in playtesting. Just saying that has a, in the UK, that has a euphemistic meaning. A Spilled Pint, 500 points. The Soul of Wimuntun, 500 points. And then only the final battle is 1,000 points, which is your sort of full-size game for Baron's Wars. So it could, in theory, be a good way of entering into and building your collection up. Some different rules for, you know, the Outlaw Spy, the Leper, and here we are just looking through the scenario. So you've got the set sides, Robin and his merry men versus the Undersheriff, and you'll see that the map is laid out. So I think these are meant to be 1 foot squares, so we're talking about a 4 foot by 3 foot table. So most people should be able to play on a 4 foot by 4 foot table with find a space enough for that. So I say about them a good way of getting into it. For me, it's not, because I've painted a whole bunch of models that, because these have set lists, I now need to redo. So I either proxy or I need to paint a whole bunch more models, which is fine. You know, that's what life is. Next thing, Spring the Trap, Bullying the Bishop, Spilled Pint, Soul of Wimuntun. So these are just the different ones. And in the final battle, where you've got quite a large number, you've probably got about, well, let's see, 30 figures on Robin Hood's side, and yeah, similar enough on the other side as well. So it's quite a large game for the Baron's Wars. And then the finale there. So next bit is a little bit of fluff on medieval outlaws, and then how to build your outlaw list. So you've got the standard guys. Can be laid out in a whole bunch of different ways. You're obviously going to be traditionally bow armed, and then you have cutthroats, which are using the levy characters from the already available. Some more bandits here. Some slingers. I love these slingers. Some of these are great. They're really sort of movement. This guy just about to pull it back. He's getting attention ready. Some more bowmen. Outlaw leaders, which could be nobles as well. And then there's some named ones. So yes, this is more of a sort of a, not outlaws in the Robin Hood sense, but more, you know, an attainted noble or something like that. Poachers, and then they've got a few new abilities. I think these are some new abilities. I don't think they're all new abilities. There are a lot of abilities in this game. And then there's some named outlaw characters here. So the ones you would expect, of course, and then a few others. So Eustace the Monk, Falkland Warren, William of Cassingham. Now, I think William of Cassingham has been available as a PDF from Footsore, linked with some miniatures. And I think there's possibly a bit more to it than just this, because that's quite brief for this William of Cassingham. And then you can make your own leader up as well. So here's, again, the base profile and how you develop him. So the Outlaws section, that's a really good thing if you're playing regularly. I probably won't use that one myself that much, because I'd probably play with knights if I wanted to, but you could use it. It's certainly another addition to the lists that are available. And then the final bit of the book is these campaign rules. So these are generic campaign rules. And yes, of course, it's set in the Baron's War, but you could use it in any historical or fantasy context, actually, I think, as I'll explain as I go along. So you get an understanding as to why you're having a campaign for a start. So what is the purpose? What is your motivation? You make your commander. You may want to use one from history, or you may want to make one brand new. They start with their base profile, and they have a chivalry rating. And a chivalry rating is important. That's how you determine who wins. And I think, if I'm right, you get up to 10 is the maximum that you can get to. and that might be the point you end the campaign, actually, depending on what you're doing. You can choose the relationship of your leaders. You can choose whether they're royalists on the side of King John or rebels on the side of Prince Louis of France, who was invading Britain at that time. And then we need to work out the starting supplies. Supplies are really important. An army marches on its stomach and all that. But this is almost like the currency in the game. So it is quite important. And then you have a campaign map, and it's used in this 19 hexes. You start with a camping centre, you have territory around, and then there's sort of a buffer land in between. And I'll just flip to the back, because these are the very nice full colour tokens that you can use to build your map. There's some more there. And you can download them from the Warhost online website. And there has been some talk that maybe they will produce something that you can purchase. And I think that would be fantastic, because I can see these being used for all number of things, to be honest. They're very mighty empires, if you remember that old Games Workshop game from the 90s, which wasn't, to my memory, actually a very good game, but had a really great set of tiles in the various renditions of it, which made like building your campaign and adding life to your world really, really great. So I hope they do something like that, even if it's just in card or MDF. It would be fantastic. So here you can see you've got this might be blue player, then red player. There's a buffer zone in between them so that you don't start right next to each other. There's some rules about laying out roads and rivers in sensible manners, of course, so that they actually connect to things. And then there's special rules about each type of terrain. So some will allow you greater movement, like a road, for instance. Some will allow you to forage better, such as forests or woods. Some will have effect on your movement. And another thing we'll come on to later on, weather can also affect these as well. So they might have different effects in the swamp, for instance, when the weather is bad. And here's a nice example of that map in full colour. And you can see it just looks brilliant, actually. I really like it. If it's some sort of online thing as well, that'd be really good as well. You know, so you could do stuff, you could plan your moves out before you actually met, and you could do it. You don't have to keep it all the way out at home somewhere. So what do you do to actually play in the game? Well, there's a bunch of phases. So there's the weather, events and movement phase, and the battle phase, and then the foraging and housekeeping phase. So you roll for initiative first. That is influenced by your chivalry rating. And then you determine the weather. And I think that's a really nice touch that a lot of systems don't really cover that much. And if they do, it's quite brief. But here we've got the weather, and it's split by seasons as well, which is really great. So you've got a winter season, spring, summer, autumn season, and then, yeah, it jumps back to winter again at the end. And then obviously, depending on what you roll, you can then get different weather effects. So you then roll, okay, so a D6 down this side. If it's winter, you've only got these options. If it's spring, you have different options. Summer different, and autumn different again. And they have an influence on the game, as we said here. So, you know, cold is no effect, but it's numb fingers, so you don't get to fire in the first round, fire bows and so on. And you can see that in rain, marsh and swamp tiles become impassable. So that's quite important. That could change how you, what options you choose in a campaign. There's some random events you roll for, so this might be good, might be bad. You might gain some supplies, you might lose supplies, you might have to pay more to take a certain type of troops this time. And there's, you know, D66 sort of options for this, which is great. Lots of interesting choices. And then you move on the map, and you can move randomly. You don't actually enter another cube to to fight. You park next to it, and then you choose if you want to move in, and they can choose to either remain and fight you, or they can retire. But if they retire, they will lose some chivalry. You can also forage if you don't fight a battle, but if you do, you would fight it as normal. And then there's a risk your leaders can be injured or ransomed as well. Finally, there's a bit at the end about the upkeep phase. So what do you do, how it influences the map. You can cut people off, and you can do some intriguing as well. So this is things like sucking up to the king or something like that. So again, a nice sort of fluffy element to the campaign. And that is it for the book, really. So do you need, sorry, some final things here, titles and rewards you can get sometimes as well. So do you need this book? No, not at all. You can play Baron's Wars with the rulebook. You do not need this book in the slightest. Are you going to get tons of use from this? Depends if you play the campaign. If you play either of the two campaigns, then you'll get absolutely hours worth of use from it. If you don't, then there's some useful fluff. There's an outlaw band there, and it's still worth having in your library, I reckon. But certainly not an essential thing, but it is very nice indeed. So well done, guys, for putting such a great book together. So now we're going to have a little look at some of the terrain pieces that I got as part of my Barons War Kickstarter. So these are 3D printed. It was a limited stock. It was reasonably expensive, but I thought, why not? The stuff looked really good, and I am very, very happy that I did back this, because whilst the STL files may be available, I'm not 100% sure whether they will produce more to be sold, because I think it was quite a labour-intensive part of the Kickstarter to deliver all this 3D printing. So let's have a little look. I haven't glued these together fully yet. So this is the lookout post in a lightning blasted old tree. So it's two halves glued together. Steps going in and around, and then up through the top here for the lookout post. And that's a really cool little thing. I can use that for pretty much anything. It looks almost more fantastical than it does historical, actually, but you know, I'm very, very happy with it. That's a really nice tree, and I think you could either put some foliage on or leave it bare. They've got it bare in the photos, but I'm tempted to put a few clumps of foliage on, to be honest. Just because it's a blasted tree doesn't mean it's dead. So yeah, that's a really nice piece. We'll start with the main event now, which is the Church of Wimuntun. So this church is cracking, really nice. Now, I'm not an expert on saying whether this is good or bad 3D printing, but to me, it looks good. I can't see any major issues anywhere. There was a couple of little things to break off, you know, the filaments. This one's gone together very nicely indeed. And you don't get that many thatched churches actually to purchase, and certainly not with these extra sort of Saxon elements to them. Well, I say Saxon, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but these extra sort of British style church elements stuck on the back. So I think this is a really nice to add some real character to these sort of British based medieval battles that we might be playing. Yeah, really pleased to have had that. Some of the other bits in the village, we'll start with a couple of the hovels. So there's a slightly larger hovel here. Again, this one does have a little bit of like warping in it. And this is quite brittle, this plastic, so I didn't want to fiddle it too much, but it's still fine. It looks great. And I think this is, again, is going to paint up very nicely. You can see how it's gone together really well there. I'm pleased with that. And again, it's got a nice look with it. You can get similar things in MDF, of course, from a variety of manufacturers, but I am pleased with that one. And I think a variety of styles is very useful for medieval things, because there was nothing sort of shop bought. This one having a slight eaves over the top of the entrance, again, is a nice little touch, I think. Some of the more interesting parts of the village, I think, are this is the hay barn or storage area. This is cracking. It really is amazing. It just looks so medieval with the arched frame. Yeah, the doors open as well. There's not much inside, but look at the ceiling. You know, you've got a really nice look on the roofing on the inside. And if you've ever been in the UK into an old barn, or anywhere else in Europe for that matter, you can see this stuff all the time. It is very thin, this, understandably, so there's a small break in the front there. I'm actually not worried about that, because you know, real life causes damage like this anyway, and I'll just put some clump foliage in front of it. It'll be absolutely fine. So I really like that. Really like it because it's very unique in style, and you get a free bunch of hay to shove inside as well. I'm hoping this is hay, otherwise it's like cow dung or something. No, it's hay. Similar for the blacksmith. So again, a really nice sort of open air element, which I've been playing a lot of Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is a fantastic real-life role-playing game set in medieval Bohemia. And this looks just like the main character's dad's blacksmith's area. It's brilliant because that would allow lots of air in, because it'd be hot in there, of course. And notice there's not a thatched roof for very good reasons when you've got lots of hot sparks and a hot chimney breast. Chimney breast doesn't quite go up to this. I wonder if that's intentional. I'm not sure, because it would make sense to me that the chimney breast would be hot. But I don't know. It looks like it fits as it's meant to. There are lots of extra bits here to go inside, so I've glued inside. You can't really see there, but I've glued inside the coals. There is a bellows, of course, to go inside as well. There's another hovel. This one has a wood store at the back, so there's some wood that goes under there. Again, just nice little touches. I would definitely buy more if they had them for sale, because I have one of these ultimate goals of building a perfect village and stuff like that, medieval village in style, which would be great. I've got loads of wells, but this is a nice one. I like the water trough attached to it. It's an interesting touch. Hayricks. So hayricks come in all sorts of different styles depending on where you are in the world. This is I imagine a European style one, but it might be different in Eastern Europe, for instance. What else do we get? We get a cart, just a normal one, just to sit outside. Very nice. Pigsty. Love it. Who doesn't love a pigsty? And it's just a selection of the walls. You can see this sort of dry stone walling and the wattle fencing. Obviously this one needs a little bit of clean up from the filaments there. These are really nice. I like these. It's probably the best fencing I've seen. Similar to the sort of Perry ones, maybe a fraction higher. But nice, very nice. And the final bits I just wanted to look at in the village. So we've got the church, it's not a church, we've got the village cross, or you could beat it by the church, I guess, which is, again, a very nice piece. And that would fit anywhere up to, modern day. So really nice. And my favourite, which is the beehive. And you can see this little beehive. There are 3 of these that came with the set. A little wicker beehive. There are some tiny, tiny bees on the side. You can see those. Really, really brilliant. I absolutely love it. Really nice. And then the one final thing I just wanted to look at is a wagon. So this didn't come as part of the village set. This came with the miniatures. So again, there's some filaments just need to break off because I've just got this one out of the box. So I'll do that with a craft knife, simply enough. You get a couple of guys to sit on the front. You get some horses as well. And what happens is you can put your thing. I'll need to trim that off by the looks. Oh no, I don't. I just need to slide it in a bit more. There we go. There, that's it. So it slides in, and there's your. I've forgotten the name for it now. The thing to keep the horses on. It's a horse either side of it, of course. What often is the case with these sort of things is that wheels are misaligned, but actually these ones are really good. Really nicely aligned there. And it comes with 2 options really. One is to use these 3 strong boxes, and these ones are really nice. They're heavy duty, but they're not got the usual fantasy stuff on them of skulls and all that business. Or wizard stuff, and they can fit in there, so you can have it like it's carrying money, okay, collecting the coffers. Robin Hood might stop it. Or you also get this frame, and the frame fits on like that, so that now it's carrying a hostage of some description, someone off to the goal in Nottingham City. So I think that's a really, really nice thing as well. So that's why I wanted to show it off. Okay, so that's it. All I wanted to talk about. So yes, the Barons Wars book, which we talked about earlier on in the video. And if you've stayed to the end, thank you very much. Obviously showing off the terrain. I do hope it is made available for purchase as well, because it really is cracking stuff. And I would certainly buy a few more hovels, no problem at all. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Take care and bye.